action. So thanks everybody for being here. Let me tell you about how I learned to ride a bike. Right. So I was in the 6 to 7 year old range, somewhere there in that zone, and didn't have a bike, didn't have much less, one with training wheels or anything like that. So, but what I would do is I would see other kids riding bikes around the neighborhood and enjoying themselves, and I thought, I got to learn how to ride a bike too. It's just part of the the a rite of passage, so to speak. Um, but I decided that this was how I would approach learning how to ride a bike. I just simply sat by and watched people ride bikes. I watched these kids riding bikes and I studied them, and I was basically studying bike riding technique. Um, I saw, oh, I see you put one foot here, you get up, you push on that pedal, and you start going. In a way, it's sort of like running, but your pedals are under your feet. And you sit tall, and you've got these handlebars in front of you. And at first, maybe you got to do some adjusting. So I just made all these little notes to myself on how to ride a bike. And but I was terribly afraid of crashing, because I guess maybe I'd seen that happen. Kids falling and crashing off their bikes and getting hurt, and I said, I don't want any part of that. But I did reckon that observing and then mimicking what I observed would be a way to learn how to ride a bike. I thought if I could figure it out all beforehand, that I would avoid crashing and falling and hurting myself. And so one day, a friend, said, want to ride my bike? And I said, well, let me try it. Let me see if I can ride. And I bravely put, threw my left foot over the bar in the middle, and then grabbed the pedal with my left foot, pushed down, and then found the other pedal with my right foot, and I started running like I thought. And what I didn't expect was the handlebars, the front wheel, to be so wobbly. I was like, oh my God, it was like all over the place. But eventually I got it under control, and I was actually, my first time riding a bike, I rode a bike. I was up riding and going around in circles and having fun, and just like kind of amazed at this whole process. But what I didn't study in riding, in the whole bike riding curriculum, was the last part, how to stop. I didn't know anything about stopping. So I thought, I just can't ride this bike in circles for hours and hours, and I gotta soon at one point get off. And so what I realized or thought is that, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. I'll just put my left foot down on the pedal, and just drag my other foot, and then somehow sooner or later I'll stop. And that worked. It wasn't very graceful, but it did work. So successfully avoided crashing and burning and hurting myself and such. And then later, a friend introduced me to this thing called a coaster brake. You could actually, the bike had a built-in stopping mechanism. And I thought, you know, success. I've learned to ride a bike. I did it all by just watching and observing. But I'd left out that last part, how to stop. So in a way, isn't this a bit like spiritual practice? Some of us may sit idly by and we read this Buddhist book or another Buddhist book of some sort. We watch YouTube videos, listen to Dharma talks. We engage in a lot of thinking and reasoning and figuring that this is a way, this is how I'm going to practice. I'm going to just reason this whole thing out for myself in my head, and then I expect that I will reach some some progress spiritually by doing this. But I have to say that the only true progress you can make is by committing to the path, actually getting on the path and following it and doing the practice, whatever that practice might be in your particular discipline. Okay. And after committing to this, to our path, we find that we make gains in our practice. It's some beautiful realizations, some wonderful insights that we have. And in my case, I literally experienced enough of the teachings, enough of the Dharma to be true, that I thought, my gosh, this stuff is real. This is real stuff. The Buddha taught something that is applicable today, now, as much as it was 2,600 years ago when he was teaching. And that in itself, it is an amazing thing to me. Like, being a human today is not that much different than being a human 2,600 years ago. The same issues, the same problems, different context maybe, but same problems. And so I developed faith, and it wasn't this blind faith that we might consider when we think of the word faith. It was that sort of faith that comes with experience, finding out that something is real and something is true. Okay. Now, in our practice, while we may have all of these nice validating experiences, we inevitably will have trouble riding this bike that we've gotten for ourselves, this being on this path. We may even fall off the bike and hurt ourselves somehow. Okay. We may indeed encounter aspects of ourselves that are unpleasant or even repulsive. And the things that actually can scare you. And it's happened with me. I can be in the middle of meditation and some wrongdoing that I did years and years and years and years ago, who knows, pops up, and I thought, oh my God, I did that. That, what do you do when such a thing happens? What do you do about that? Do you just quit and say, and I can't take that part of this practice? I just want the good stuff, So let me tell you something else about me, something unpleasant that has recently resurfaced in my mind. I don't know, I had not thought about this in a long time, but it came up. So some years ago, when I was in my 20s, I took a self-improvement workshop, seminar of sorts. I can't even remember the title of it necessarily now, or what it was called. But one of the exercises that we did in this workshop was a kind of a war game. All right. What happened was that the seminar leader said, chose somebody on one, to be a general over here. So you're the general over there. And then another person, you're the general for this team. And then divided everybody up into teams of warriors, so to speak, assigned to one general or the other. So this is how the game went. One general would say, play. And what we would play is rock, paper, scissors. Okay. So somebody on that general's team would go, his team would disperse and find somebody on the other team to play rock, paper, scissors with. So paper, scissors, rock, whatever it was, we played rock, paper, scissors with this person, and whoever won lived, whoever didn't win died. So that person was a casualty of war. And then it went on, the other general would say, play. And his team would go over to that side and play rock, paper, scissors with somebody from a warrior from the other team. And eventually it was a game of attrition, basically. whoever was left with just one player, that general was the winner. That team was the winner. So the game went on until there was only one warrior remained. And mind you, all this took place in a hotel banquet room. So now let me spoil the ultimate outcome of this exercise. I won. I was the one warrior remaining standing. Though I was not proud of how I won. And I guess the object of the exercise, learn something about yourself, about how you play the game, whatever it might be. In a way, this is the game of life we're talking about. So I did learn something about myself. I played the game by not playing the game. I basically became a wallflower in this group of people. Somehow I avoided having to battle with anyone, maybe once or twice at the most. But I just sat back and barely participated. I was just that afraid of dying. In a way, that was really what was probably foremost in my mind. I didn't want to die in this game. After the game, there was a little ceremony at the end honoring the victorious general and his one living soldier, me. But it didn't feel honorable to me. It felt as though I had faked my way through this game in order to win. So you see, I was painfully shy growing up. Looking back, I can see or make some sense of this aspect of myself. And this is still something that it's not gone. It's not like I don't have that piece of my personality anymore. It's still there to some degree or whatever. I can still find myself sitting back in order to get by. But I realized that my shyness was a sort of technique that I had developed in order to avoid being hurt or avoid embarrassment. That was my way of keeping from falling off the bike, so to speak. So my superpower as I grew up was to go unnoticed. I may have found a way to survive, but it was at the cost of not participating fully in life, just existing, not really living, basically. But knowing this uncomfortable tendency that I have, what is there to do? What do you do with this? And as you practice and you discover things that come up in your practice that are uncomfortable, some uncomfortable truth about yourself, what should you do? As you would have compassion for others, and we're taught this, having compassion. This is a big part of our practice. One thing you might realize and come to know is that you need to have compassion for yourself too. You need to have room for you to experience and be a human being who has flaws and shortcomings. You accept your own humanness. There's this phrase that floats around in some spiritual circles. Sometimes it's actually been attributed to the Buddha. It's not the Buddha's words. So you yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. So these words you can't find anywhere in the Pali Canon. They're not the Buddha's words. And it's a worthy sentiment, though. They're beautiful, beautiful words. The focus of the Buddha Dharma is always to lessen suffering for yourself and for others. It was really the principal teaching of the Buddha. So, the short talk, but I want to end with this reading from the Udana. Okay, so raise your hands and together, palms together. These are the Buddha's words. It's part of the Pali Canon. This is the sutta, the king, Raja Sutta. Thus I have heard. At one time, the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Nadapindika's monastery. On that occasion, King Pasenadi of Kosala had gone to the upper story of the royal palace with Queen Malika. Then King Pasenadi of Kosala said to Queen Malika, "Is there anyone, Malika, dearer to you than yourself?" "There is no one, great king, dearer to me than myself." "But is there anyone, great king, dearer to you than yourself?" "Neither is there anyone, Malika, dearer to me than myself." Then King Pasenadi of Kosala descended from the palace and went to visit the Lord. On approaching the Lord, he prostrated himself and sat down to one side and reported this conversation. Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance. On traversing all directions with the mind, one finds no one anywhere dearer than oneself. Likewise, everyone holds himself most dear. Hence, one who loves himself should not harm another. So ends the reading. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.